25 years later, the Rotary lights are bigger than ever, and every night at 5 p.m. they go from this to this, and this year organizers say there's even more to experience. Before she was Tokyo bound, Alicia ran on this track in Amory for high school, Madison for college, and of course Eugene for the trials, where racing in the heat was no easy feat. Danielle, during an emergency briefing this morning, the La Crosse County Health Department said it's too soon to reopen the community. The department does not believe the pandemic has reached its peak and says going back to normal life now could be dangerous. Kudo says she has heard from members of the deaf community that say having her there to interpret have helped them understand the local impacts of COVID-19. Bob, 52-year-old Kevin Loftus didn't make it hard for the FBI to find him. 6 months since his passing, Anthony's remembered every day by the community, not just in Tuesday's blood drive, but also by this tree planted in his honor inside Myrick Park. Thanks, Bob. I'm still outside City Hall where ballots have continued to get dropped off to be counted in the city clerk's office. Now, we do have an update on the election. We have 25 of 35 precincts with their votes in, and it's a 50-vote race right now. Vicki Markison has 51% with 2,516 votes, and Mitch Reynolds at 49% at 2,466. So it's still up in the air who's going to be the 43rd mayor for the city of La Crosse. Carla, I had the chance to speak one-on-one with Vice President Pence this morning at Dairyland Power Cooperative in La Crosse. While he touched on topics like COVID testing and Kenosha protests, his main message this Labor Day was about a job market that continues to try and bounce back.
Labor Day is a day that we really celebrate hard-working American men and women that have always been the backbone of this country. Vice
President Mike Pence used this Labor Day stop in La Crosse to tout the Trump administration's work on trade agreements like the USMCA, creating over 500,000 manufacturing jobs over the last 3 years and repealing on average 9 regulations for every new one made.
We cut taxes, fought for free and fair trade, rolled back regulations, unleashed American energy. We saw wages rising across the board, but rising most rapidly for hardworking blue-collar Americans.
Prior to COVID-19, Mr. Pence says unemployment was at 3.5%, the lowest in the last 50 years. That number increased to 13% in May.
The president also, he took executive action already to extend unemployment benefits for people that haven't been able to find work yet.
While 10.5 million of the 22 million jobs lost to the pandemic have been regained.
Jobs, jobs, jobs right here in Wisconsin and all across America.
Pence says there's still a ways to go.
We're going to make this economy great again, greater than ever before, by continuing to cut taxes, roll back regulation, fight for free and fair trade, and advance the kind of energy policies that will lower the costs of electricity and energy for every American family and every American business.
Labor Day was also on the minds of those on the other side of the political aisle, like Democratic State Assembly Representative Jody Emerson.
To reflect on where we're at as a country, thanks to the middle class and the hardworking workers of this country.
Monday saw Democratic VP nominee Kamala Harris make a stop in Milwaukee. Emerson says the Labor Day visits by Pence and Harris shows how important Wisconsin will be come November 3rd.
I hope that both of these candidates come away with knowing this is what America is, and this is what we need to do to represent America.
Pence says he's happy Harris is joining the campaign trail as it gives Americans the chance to compare both campaigns and their policies.
Contrast that with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that are advocating $4 trillion in higher taxes, a $2 trillion version of the Green New Deal, and literally would bury our economy under an avalanche of liberal policies. I think there's...
Vice President Pence says there is no question that when Wisconsinites do compare President Trump's campaign to Biden's, that just like in 2016, the Badger State will again vote for 4 more years of President Trump in the White House.
A monster did something horrible to him, but he's not the one they're going to remember. It's going to be Anthony they remember.
In the early hours of June 27th, 19-year-old Anthony Fimple was shot and killed while serving as a door host in a downtown La Crosse bar. Now, as Christmas nears, the La Crosse community is remembering him by doing something he did regularly, donating blood.
There was a little app that would alert him whenever his blood was being used. Not only did he get a kick out of it, but he really saw the results of how his donation was helping other people.
Anthony's father, Gus Fimple, says while every parent sees their child through rose-colored glasses, the outpouring of love and memory shared since his son's passing prove he was one of the best. Anthony received Versity blood to keep his organs viable while awaiting transplant surgery following the shooting.
Kind of came full circle in kind of a poetic and kind of a sad way, but I'm glad it did work out.
Donating up until the end, Anthony's organs went on to save 6 people.
His lungs are here in Wisconsin, and I have been in contact with that person. The rest of them are throughout the Midwest and the East.
The Fimples have been told that all the transplant surgeries were successful, including his heart, which is now in Illinois.
You know, somebody's family out there is having a Christmas right now with their loved ones because of this tragedy and Anthony's gift.
Gus admits that he would much rather have his son here today, but events like the blood drive and knowing his son helped others provides a glimmer of hope.
With the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and then we have this huge hole, it's really hard to put a smiling face on and go out every day.
6 months since his passing, Anthony's remembered every day by the community, not just in Tuesday's blood drive, but also by this tree planted in his honor inside Myrick Park.
He was big into conservation and he worked with WEAU, so the fact that they planted a tree in his honor, it's going to be there for years and years and years.
The tree, a weeping willow, chosen by the WEAU, who remember Fimple as a role model.
That the second summer he came back as an assistant crew leader, and which was more of a leadership role, but also like setting the example for the new crew members.
WEAU Operations Manager Chad Duchateau says he thinks of Anthony every day when he walks by the tree and is told the Fimple family visits weekly.
If you turn around and kind of face the marsh, and it's quite a neat spot to remember him by, seeing the bluffs and the marsh.
And more than 108 donors remembered Anthony at the blood drive, including his parents, Gus and Kristen, who say Anthony would have been thrilled to help out, but more bashful about it being in his honor.
If he were here, and I'm sure he's watching somewhere, he probably thinks this is way too much. He was a very humble kid.
Finding a little light in the darkness. While no longer here, Anthony Fimple's legacy lives on. In La Crosse, Hayley Spitler, WEAU 13 News.
Are you saying yes to the dress? I'm saying yes to this dress.
When it comes to picking out a wedding dress, a bride has lots of choices to make. Cost, style, color, but one decision they shouldn't have to make is how many people they can bring to the appointment. Faced with new COVID protocols, one salon has turned to some virtual options to make sure everyone is included.
We've got these fun stands that we can put either FaceTime or we Zoom in your loved one or whoever you wanted to come in to view your appointment.
Charlotte's Bridal in La Crosse is adapting to COVID-19 with new policies. Masks are required to be worn indoors, only stylists are going through the racks of dresses, and brides are limited to 3 or 4 guests in the store. However, better Wi-Fi, a Zoom account, and stands for phones were all purchased to make sure a bride can include more friends and family virtually.
I Zoomed in my grandma, Vanderpool from Ohio, and my cousin Courtney, who is so close growing up, and then I Zoomed in a coworker as well.
Bride Caitlin Douglas got engaged August 19th and is getting married in May. She says finding her dress takes one stress off of planning, something that's filled with a lot of what-ifs due to COVID-19. One thing that made her day even better, getting to show her grandma the dress she will walk down the aisle in.
She was bawling. It was so great. I loved it. I loved her reaction just to be here, and even today putting on the dress that was my dress, and she had to see her reaction was amazing.
Charlotte's Bridal owner Jen Walker says brides are using the new feature often.
We kind of put the person with the rest of your group at that same level, so it's almost like they're here, even though it's through the camera.
Based on the first one.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Good job.
While the virtual options come with additional cost for the store, Walker says it's well worth it to help out brides, and it will continue even after the pandemic ends.
Sometimes it's not feasible for somebody to come for an appointment either, like they live in Texas or California, and that's a really long trip to make for a bridal appointment.
Charlotte says the number of guests allowed in person can change based on the local COVID-19 risk. The man accused of fatally shooting a bar employee in downtown La Crosse on June 27th appeared in intake court Monday afternoon. Timothy Young of Spring Grove, Minnesota is charged with first-degree intentional homicide in the death of Anthony Fimple. If convicted, he faces life in prison.
The strength of the state's case is strong. There are several eyewitnesses that identify Mr. Young as the shooter in this case, as well as surveillance video of the crime in which the defendant can clearly be identified.
Bond was set during Young's court appearance.
I am satisfied that a significant cash bond is appropriate to protect the public. The court will set cash at the amount of $1 million as requested.
If bond is posted, Young will be on house arrest with GPS monitoring and is to have no contact with the victim's family. The La Crosse Police Department says the incident unfolded early Saturday morning around 12:47 a.m.
Officers responded down to the Twisted Moose for possible shots fired call, and when they arrived on scene, discovered that one male party had been shot.
According to police officers, it's at this entryway of the Twisted Moose, also known as the La Crosse Beer House, where witnesses saw Timothy Young shoot 19-year-old bouncer Anthony Fimple.
Mr. Young had been in the Twisted Moose earlier in the evening, had left, and then returned to the Twisted Moose and was denied entry into the Twisted Moose, at which time he left and came back, and the incident took place where he shot Mr. Fimple.
According to the criminal complaint, officers found Fimple bleeding from his head at the scene. He died at the hospital Saturday. The complaint also notes this is not the first time the bar has had issues with Young.
Mr. Young has had some incidents in the downtown area, and we are looking into those incidents.
The La Crosse Police Department says it has seen an uptick in gun-related calls this year.
Remain vigilant of your surroundings. If you see something, say something, call us. We'll take a look at whatever it might be and we'll work with you.
Young is scheduled to make his initial court appearance on July 14th at 11 a.m. Anyone with information related to the incident is asked to reach out to the police department as the investigation is ongoing.